Welcome to the Dragon's Den. I am your venerable host, Orochi, and today we are talking about TTRPGs, specifically a brand new third-party book pulled out by Roll for Combat for the Pathfinder 2 system, and pretty soon they're also going to make a conversion for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons as well, and it is the BattleZoo Ancestries Dragons book. This, of course, is near and dear to my heart, as it is an entire book specifically designed for playing dragons of all types, with plenty of crunch and lore for, 45, I think, different kinds of dragons, which is more than anyone else has anywhere at all, ever. This is just going to be a quick overview of the book. Once it's up on Path Builder, I will do a far more crunchier deep dive on all the rules. Doing a quick once-over of all the Ancestry feats. They're decent. Some of them are super specific, just flavorful ribbon kind of abilities, so pretty much useless for anything other than you can go, hey, I'm this kind of dragon, I can do this thing. But it's never going to be useful, ever, which is alright. Some of the abilities are more of, like, there's one where you can use your scales as your armor, and they count as leather armor, basically. One item bonus to AC, max dex bonus of +4, which is garbage, pretty much, but it's useful if you're a cloth caster, because you literally have no other options but max out your dex, and this will allow you to get the 5 AC minimum, basically acceptable amount of AC even at level 1 if you try to max out your dex, which you can't. So I don't know, it's a feat tax because casters suck. That's basically all that boils down to. And that sort of stuff irritates me. Like, every time casters get love, it's all just, but you're just patching the holes of all the ways that these classes are bad. So I'll eventually get a deep dive, more deep dives into my thoughts on Pathfinder 2, as it's my system of choice, but has a lot of problems. But it at least gives you choices, which 5e doesn't, and I can't stand that. I did that for a while, and then I got tired of it, and I couldn't deal with it anymore. I love the amount of choices you get with Pathfinder 2. It just has some other issues. So here, you're going to start off with getting your Ancestries for lots of pages, because not a whole lot of detailed information under this. It just gives you the base flavor of each of the types of dragons and some of their limitations, because all dragons start with a bite attack and a claw attack, and then you get additional attacks based on your what type of dragon you are if you pick them up later with feats. So most dragons can either get like horn attacks or wing attacks or tail attacks. Sometimes a combination of 2 of those, but I don't think anyone gets all 3. And then, I don't know how this is going to turn out in 5th edition, but for Pathfinder 2, we have 2 basically prestige classes. They're archetypes for Draconic Ravager, which is your melee-based, basically your fighter, and Dragon Mage, which is your sorcerer. And those have a lot more of the kind of dragon flavor you're looking for, especially Ravager, because it'll give you all the basic stuff you're looking for to be a dragon. Gives you your size increase. You can, I think, be huge by level 13, which is mind-blowing and new. No other ancestry can do that. You've got your Draconic Frenzy, so 3 attacks for 2 actions, and refresh your breath weapon. You've got the what is it? The Coiling Frenzy, I think it's called, for the Imperial Dragons, where you get to make two attacks and an auto grab, which is pretty interesting. So it's got all of those little flavor things, and you can pick up like Aura of your, not Aura of Fear, but your not inspiring aura, friggin' Dreadful Presence. No, that's the name of the friggin' evil champion thing, isn't it? The dragon, your Dragon Fear aura. I forget what it's specifically called in Pathfinder 2 now. But you can pick that up with Ravager and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it varies from, the very basic stuff you would want just to consider yourself this dragon character. And it also has both of the classes and even a lot of the ancestry feats. There's at least 2 ancestry feats and at least like 3 Ravager and maybe 1 or 2 Mage feats that are unique to each dragon type. So you have a ton of feats which you are never even going to think about unless you are specifically going to be that one type of dragon. You're going to be an umbral dragon or an amber dragon or a silver dragon or any one of these specific dragons. They each have a small selection of feats unique to them, which is, considering there's 45 different types, that's over 100 feats that are just heritage specific, which is mind-blowingly awesome. And so those, as very flavorful things, you might think, oh, well, they can't really be that powerful because Pathfinder 2 has a tendency to not have a lot of power in their flavorful, really cool things. But I think Mark did a very good job on a lot of the stuff. Like, I know one of the things was that white and silver dragons can get a frost aura, and I forget what combinations, but, there's like a good 8 to 10 dragons who have different kinds of damaging auras they can have. And it's just like, yeah, if you're within 10, 20 feet of me, I forget what the radius is. I think it's 20-foot radius. If you're within 20 feet of me, you automatically have to save for damage. It's not a lot of damage. It's like, it scales up with your level, which is decent, but it maxes out at like fireball damage, which is, 66. It's all right. By level 20, it's not going to be anything to write home about, but it's flavorful and it's automatic. I will say that the Ancestry breath weapon is terabad, but in line with every other Ancestry breath, like the kobold breath and stuff. It's absolute garbage. You would never want to use it because the damage numbers are so low, because they're trying to balance it against cantrips for no reason, because that's what they consider balance. But it's like, if it doesn't do enough damage to change the course of battle, then you might as well have not done it, literally. Like, if the damage numbers do not show that you are quickening the time to kill on any creatures, then why do these abilities even exist? Because you put any character who has like kobold breath or any other damaging type abilities, or even really cantrips or anything, in a group with well-made marshals, and your damage might as well not exist, because you are not hastening the death of creatures, because like the marshal will kill most of these creatures, even high levels. Like, I'm in a level 18 game right now, and our fighter can take out most things in like 3 to 4 hits. Most equal level, sometimes higher level stuff in 3 to 4 hits. So if you are not doing at least a single martial hit, even on a massive AoE blast, casting level 8 spells and stuff, your damage isn't high enough to even be worth existing. And that's a big problem in Pathfinder 2, I think. And so I think it redeems itself because the Ancestry Feats breath is low damage, but then I think Ravager specifically has the deep breath feat, which doubles your breath damage, and then it also, the base Ravager archetype bumps your damage dice for your breath up from D4s to D6s. So, and then you can take the deep breath feat to double your damage. That's basically, the level 17 ability that summoners with the Dragon Eidolons get, and you can get that by I think like level 6 or 8 or something. And it just makes it so that you can't use, it's a meta breath feat basically. I'm pretty sure they had those in Pathfinder 1. Never played Pathfinder 1, so I don't know. And anybody comparing anything to Pathfinder 1, I don't care. Literally give zero craps about the game. So whenever somebody brings that up as a comparison point, I'm like, cool, I don't care. But I think that was a thing from the first, and Mark kind of just brought it back. And they serve a good purpose, and they're great. Is it really worth an action? Maybe. Like most things, it's super situational, whether it's going to be worth it or not. Most of the time, I'm like, just hit stuff harder. That's usually a good solution to most problems. But it's the deep breath feat is nice because it has its own separate cooldown that's different from your breath weapon. So you can use the deep breath and then your regular breath, and as soon as possible, as soon as you do the 1d4 rounds, which is nice because it has 1d4 times 10 minute cooldown. So it's not even once a combat if you're doing a combat heavy thing like, dungeon crawl kind of stuff, mega dungeon. But it's still pretty cool. And there's a whole bunch of feats that are like that change the way that your breaths work. A whole bunch of feats for specific breaths for specific dragon types, and just lots of super, super interesting stuff. The Dragon Mage has a level 20 feat that I think it's kind of too high level, but it's on par with like the Magambian archetype that allows you to cast 2 spells at the same time. But the Dragon Mage allows you to cast a spell through your breath, and you can do that by maybe level 10, and then the level 20 feat makes it so that you can actually do both at the same time. Use your breath weapon and cast a spell through your breath. So it's just more damage, which is awesome. I think there needs to be vastly more stuff like that for casters, because caster feats don't allow you to do cool stuff. Like martial feats is like, hey, you can normally strike things. That's your class ability. It's like, oh, well, now I'm giving you all these super flavorful and different ways of doing strikes, but they're also better than the normal strike. You would never exchange like most of your martial feats for regular strikes, because they're regular strikes plus other stuff. And casters don't really have feats that do that kind of thing, that like add more value to their spell casting. Even if it was just stuff that, like, oh, you take some feats to make your illusions better so that they're just more effective, harder to disbelieve, and even if people are like touching your illusions, they can't disbelieve them unless the illusion is specifically doing a thing that an illusion of that type would not do, Just ways to make spells better, just to go, hey, I'm specializing in this kind of spell, so I'm going to pick up a bunch of feats that really hone in on me being good with these spells. And yeah, so it's nice to see the Dragon Mage have a little bit of that. Not a whole lot, but it's got a little bit of that flavor. So it's really cool. Then we go down to Draconic Diehards, which are a class archetype. So it's going to replace your standard class abilities with other abilities, and it's meant to be there to be more of a bystander. Dragon PCs in this book are dragons that have done, this ritual. It's called the Luxatirna, and that basically makes it so that you trade, all of like the dragon stat blocks in bestiaries, even the youngest we have, which are just young dragons, because we don't have worldlings or hatchlings or stat blocks for anything like that. So even young dragons can fly and have minimum, supernatural magical abilities. So you trade all that stuff away so that you can be a player character at first level, because there's no first level dragons. There's nothing. They're all like, what, 6th level is the lowest young dragon, I think? Maybe 5th? So the Lux Eterna is a in-world reasoning for why you can have lower powered dragons, and Mark did a great job of making it so that, it's a societal thing, and some dragons, do this because they want to get stronger faster. So, especially young dragons want to do this, so they go, oh, I have a, calamity that I need to be stronger to fix, or, somebody's hunting me down and wants to kill me and I need to get stronger faster, or I want to experience the way, lesser creatures live their lives, or all these different cool societal reasons why you might want to do this, and how, regular dragons view dragons who use this ritual, and how certain dragons, like void dragons and stuff, it's like, this is a huge thing for them, and regular void dragons would kill them on sight for having done this ritual. And so, lots of different cool societal stuff. And there's also, in the end, right before the appendix, or it might be somewhere in here, there's a list of other reasons why you would allow dragon PCs that don't use this ritual, because I don't really like the ritual in general. Like, I view it as, dragon PCs are just going to be adventurers, and I can't imagine any person starting a dragon PC and being like, oh yeah, I'm a 500-year-old dragon who's going to start adventuring. It's like, that kind of, for me, that doesn't fit any of my power fantasies for being a dragon. It's like, most of the time, because I played Council of Worms when it was first released, and the first adventure on that is you coming out of the egg. That's how the adventure starts, and you have to protect the nest because there's trolls invading, stealing eggs. So to me, that's the quintessential kind of start to any dragon campaign, is you're going to be a hatchling, or at least a wormling. And so, you're not going to have all these powers, like, you're not going to have your wings out yet to be able to fly, or any of your quintessential special powers or anything, because you're just a baby dragon. And that to me is how you would normally start. And then you're just saying is like, well, you look at your average, 50-year-old human, and then look at your 20th level human of any age, even if they're like 25, is like, the difference in those two things is like, they might as well not even be the same friggin' species anymore, because statistically they are nothing alike. They are completely non-comparable. So to me, just saying, oh yeah, you're a dragon PC, you've adventured, you've gained levels as a dragon, of course you're completely different now than every other dragon, because that's basically what levels do in the fantasy setting. Like, that's just how it is. So to me, there's not much of a cognitive disconnect between adventurers and humans, and adventuring dragons and regular dragons. It's like, yeah, they're going to be completely friggin' different. So that's just how adventuring is. But the Draconic Diehard is more of being a traditionalist, because all dragons that use the Lux Eterna ritual can use gear, because that's just a standard of Pathfinders. Like, you need gear. And like this one here is like, he's got potions on him, they've got armor, and I think that got some daggers, maybe a sword there. They're using gear. And the Draconic Diehard archetype is specifically about not doing that, just being more of your ultra standard type of dragon who just uses, their natural powers all the time, which I think is cool, but I'm not sure it will ever get you where you want to go, because I would like a little bit of both, I think maybe the ancestry feats to get your natural weapons and stuff are not strong, because like the dragon bite is a D6 weapon, and I'm like, that's way too weak. That definitely feels like it should be a lot higher. Like, should be a D10 at least, right? And their claws are D4s. It's like, yeah, sure. That's how everything is. All the other ancestors get D4 claw attacks that they can pick up with feats. I don't think anybody gets them naturally. It's like, you've got them naturally, but they kind of feel weak. They should probably be D6 or D8s, right? So, I don't know. I didn't look at the details of Diehard, but maybe that's what it does, and maybe that'll be pretty cool. But we'll see. And then the Draconic Scion is not quite half dragons, but it can fill that void. It's basically anybody of varying hundreds of different reasons why you can think up, but they're imbued with draconic power. And I think that's straight off the bat more than what you would get with Sorcerer, because you're going to start off with being able to choose dragon feats and that sort of stuff. So it's basically like a versatile heritage, but it's got problems in that area because like the draconic ancestry by itself is void of almost every piece of flavor, because your heritage that you choose is the type of dragon you are. So it can get kind of weird thinking, oh, you're just picking up the dragon type and you're not actually picking up any of the specific types. Like, you're not a silver dragon scion because that's a heritage and you're not getting that. So it's a little weird. Didn't read a whole lot into that, but I've been looking for half dragons for a long time, so I'll make it work, and I'll try to get into some games and be like, I need to use this. It's half dragon. I need this. And then Hordes of Power was super interesting section, because it basically allows you to use your horde to get stronger. It's an optional rule that basically just says, hey, if you have the first book for BattleZoo, the bestiary that has the rules for monster parts, then you can use those rules, and instead of using monster parts for stuff, you just pay you separate your horde into different piles, basically, and that becomes your gold cost for your weapon improvements. So you'll have, like, one section of your horde is just dedicated to your armor, and then your scales will literally just get stronger and get the bonuses that you want from it. And another stack of your horde is based on your weapon or your perception items or your skill items. And so that, to me, does, like, the Draconic Diehard kind of thing much better, because if you're using the monster part rules, I feel like they start off slower than your standard magical items, but they get so much better. You get a lot more abilities for your magical effects, like your on-hit abilities, or you can get extra spells, and it's just a much more interesting and higher powered system, which makes me love it a lot more, because the base system for like damage runes on weapons is pretty terrible. It's just like, hey, you get a D6, and then the high level version of it's a D6, but you can ignore immunities and maybe get an extra on crit ability. It's like, those aren't fantastic. They don't scale up very well. Whereas the monster parts rules does. They scale up pretty freaking well. Lots of good stuff to have there. And so using Hordes of Power like that, I'm super looking forward to doing that, because then it's just like, yeah, you're not using magical items, you're just throwing them in your horde, and instead of getting the abilities of those items, you're getting the gold cost for them and just boosting yourself up that way. It gives you a lot more choice of what kind of buffs you want to get, but it's also got the downsides of, like, you know, some higher level magic items are just really freaking good, and you can't mimic the abilities they give you in any other way. Hopefully, when the next BattleZoo book comes out, Mark will be able to spend some time to make more stuff for the monster parts, because, you know, it's all about just having these abilities instead of using magic items. And if the best way to expand tabletop RPG games is add more items that just do more cool stuff for players to interact with, then the monster part system is going to have to be expanded at some point with more choices, because otherwise it's going to get less and less useful as more and more magical items are introduced to the system. But the Hordes of Power also, if you don't have, or for whatever don't want to use the monster part system, it also allows you to just use the GMG's alternate bonus progression system, which I think a lot of people like. It takes magical item bonuses, just the hard numbers, off from the items and gives it to you naturally, so you can just choose what. You get a broader range of items that you can choose from to be useful, instead of going, oh, well, I have to buy the +1 rune for my weapon, and then I have to buy the striking rune for my weapon. That's what my money's going to go to, because otherwise I'm going to be subpar as a character. I can't buy any of the super flavorful or cool stuff just yet. I have to get these minimum effectiveness stuff first. And that kind of sucks, especially if you're not playing an adventure path, because I think most adventure paths throw the core items you need at you fast enough so that you'll have them. But if you're playing homebrew stuff, then, and your GM isn't like super keen on knowing exactly when they have to give this stuff to you, or giving you enough money so that you can buy these things and then also buy cool stuff, then you got APB. So it's a choice between the two of them, and they're both decent options if you want to use this. And it's an optional thing just to ask your GM when you go into a game. It's like, hey, can I use any of these options? And if you're specifically in this section, it even goes into details. Like, if you have one dragon character in your party of 4 or 5 players, and they're going, oh yeah, I want to use Hordes of Power, then it can actually help the rest of the group, because then they're not vying for any of the loot that anybody else wants. Your character, the rest of the party chooses what magical items they want from any loot drop, and then the rest go to the dragon. And the dragon's just like, yeah, I just want everything. If you're not using it, give it to me. But make sure you're going to use it, because if you say you're going to use it and you're not, we're going to have words. So yeah, and then you just get the half gold value of any items. Instead of selling them, they go into your gold hoard. And there's also an even deeper option where if you make a pact with your GM and say, yes, I will only use the Hordes of Power rules, and I will not ever change my mind when I see a super cool magical item that I want, and I will swear off magical items as equipment forever, then it says you can allow your dragon player to treat items as 75% of their worth instead of the standard 50. And I think that's a really cool thing, because, you know, it's not quite as good as, hey, when you get a magical item and you use it, you're getting 100% of the gold value for it. Whereas if you sell it, you only get 50%, which is basically ass. It's kind of ass because, like in APs, it's kind of a problem where in homebrew, your GM can just give you stuff that they're pretty sure you want. They could even ask you, it's like, hey, what kind of stuff would you like to find in within the next, 10 fights or something, What are the kind of stuff you're looking for? And they can seed it somewhere ahead in your path. Whereas APs, you're probably not, but you could technically go an entire adventure and find nothing you want. And in that sort of situation, it's like, yeah, you're technically only getting half as much value out of everything that's dropping as you probably should, because none of it's the stuff you want to use or your class is capable of using, So in that sense, 75% as a medium is pretty good. It's a good option. And so if you're looking to play dragons, and even if you play 5th edition, this will eventually come out for 5th edition, and we'll see how well most of the stuff works, because there's not a lot of give and take with abilities for 5th edition. You're probably going to be losing your class. Like, for 5th edition, your class is probably either going to have to be Dragon Mage or Dragon Ravager, and those will probably be your only options. But you'll get the benefit of, every time you get a subclass or class options, you'll be able to choose the cool feats that are in this. But yeah, I would say go up and pick this up if you have any interest in playing dragons or having dragon PCs in any of your games. It's fantastic. Like, who doesn't want dragons in their game? If you don't, then there's something wrong with you. That is it for now. Once this is done for Path Builder, I'll go in depth on the classes and maybe some builds, because I already have some cool character ideas in the ready. And I might even go over some more of the lore that's in this, because even straight at the beginning here, you got all the lore of all the different kinds of dragons. Astral Dragons, Apocalypse Dragon, Amber, Occult, Nightmare Dragon, Feral Dragon. Lots of different kinds of dragons. Look at all of this goodness. So good. That's it for now. See you again soon.